Hello everyone, my name is Barak Merimovich and I am the Cloudify group leader at GIgaSpaces, and today I'm going to be talking to you about Devstack on demand. Quick show of hands, who here has used Devstack, knows what Devstack is? So good turnout. With me today is Moav from Ravello, and we'll be talking about our Devstack on demand service. So what we will be discussing today, I'm going to just be going through quickly what Devstack is, what it can, and also what can't do. And then I'll discuss why we need Devstack on demand. Then Gal will be introducing Ravello and how they fit in to the service. And then we'll do a quick demo of how the service works. And we'll be talking a bit about some of the things you can and should do with it and some of our future plans. And well, LibreOffice just crashed, so that happens too. Okay, so Cloudify. This isn't a session about Cloudify, but it's important to know a bit about Cloudify just so you know why we need it. Cloudify is a cloud orchestrator. It's an open source cloud orchestrator. What this means is that we will move your applications, your blueprint, your workflows into the cloud. Many clouds, not just any one cloud. So we'll support OpenStack, CloudStack, and a great many others. As such, working with multiple clouds is a very basic part of what we do. It's not just multiple clouds either. It's multiple versions and multiple configurations of private cloud infrastructures. And that is a very core part of our R&D process. So Devstack. Devstack is an opinionated installer for OpenStack. It's not a generic installer. It doesn't do everything. It doesn't cover every feature. It doesn't cover every service, everything you can do with OpenStack. But it is a very convenient way of getting a quick OpenStack system running. And by OpenStack system, I don't exactly mean what most people mean when they run OpenStack. Devstack started as a project to make it possible for OpenStack developers to run all of the OpenStack services locally on their environment. So if you're actually hacking on OpenStack, you're developing Nova, Cinder, whatever, Neutron, then you run everything locally and you can quickly see how things are working. So Devstack is all about running your services on one box. It's OpenStack in a box. You can in fact have Devstack running on a multi-node environment that is not as well supported. There are a lot of configuration options for Devstack. Not all of them are actively tested, so you have to be careful about what it is you use it and what you can't use it for. So why would I need Devstack on demand? So how do you test a cloud orchestrator? A cloud orchestrator that works on multiple clouds, that works on multiple versions of clouds. So we're all about the software process, agility, testing. We test everything. We have unit tests for everything. Cloudify is by definition, it's based on Tosca. It's very plugin oriented. Everything is its own plugin. OpenStack is its own plugin. Amazon is its own plugin. So we unit test everything. We mock everything. But at the end of the day, somebody has to run this on an actual cloud. There has to be a test that runs Amazon. There has to be a test that runs VMware, vCloud. There has to be a test that runs OpenStack. So if you have a public cloud that supports what you're trying to do, that's easier. Testing for Amazon, you set up a test account for Amazon, you make sure it's monitored, you make sure it's periodically cleaned up, you're okay. If you're using vCloud Air, you're still okay. For OpenStack, you have some public clouds, you have HP Cloud, you have other hosted OpenStack environments, but it's the variations that get you. Which version of OpenStack should Cloudify support? Kilo just came out, Juno, iSauce before that, Havana. Havana is still actively deployed and running in a bunch of places. How do you test for all of these environments? OpenStack comes out with 2 releases a year. How far back do we need to maintain our support? So how do I get all of these versions of OpenStack successfully tested? What about non-standard configuration? OpenStack has the Neutron network service. It also has Novanet. Novanet is still actively deployed and being used in a bunch of enterprises. How do we make sure that we support Novanet? So these are the core infrastructure problems, that core testing issues that the Cloudify R&D team have to constantly deal with. So before I start going to how to use Devstack on demand, I'll introduce Gal.
But I just mentioned that Ravello was founded by the same team that built KVM, and we're still in the infrastructure business. We're actually building a SaaS service that can run applications and infrastructure on multiple clouds. And as such, we are very familiar with the challenges of infrastructure dev and test. And Barak touched on a few of these challenges, but there are obviously others. When you, an OpenStack vendor or an ISV on the ecosystem of OpenStack, you need to test environments with multiple nodes. Devstack is one node, but sometimes you'd like to run multiple nodes. You have many different possible configuration, this network component or the other, the storage component or the other, with high availability, without, different deployment methods, different versions, scale is an issue. Sometimes you run one VM for functional tests, as Barak mentioned. Sometimes you'd like to run the test scale with 50 nodes or 100 nodes. And the usage of test and dev is always bursty, so it's a classic candidate for the public cloud. However, you cannot run OpenStack on the public cloud. Why you cannot run OpenStack on the public cloud? Because OpenStack basically compute nodes are KVM based. This is a hypervisor, and in order to run more than hypervisors, you need to have hardware support. That is either Intel VM or AMD SVM. It's basically instruction set that the hardware exposed for the hypervisor. So if you try to run KVM on AWS, you fail. And it's the same AWS, Google Cloud, Rackspace, most of the public cloud I know. The other missing component is basically layer 2 infrastructure. You would usually like to have your own layer 2 infrastructure. I would like to run your own DHCP with fixing boot. You'd like to have static IPs or DHCP or so on, and you don't have that control on the public cloud. So this is where our solutions come in place. So there are three components to the service that we run in Ravello systems, but the two important ones in this respect are first, the nested virtualization. We build our own hypervisor. It is called HVX. It's basically a nested hypervisor. So it's an hypervisor that is built from the ground up to run on top of other hypervisors. So it doesn't need hardware support. Yes, it has a performance impact, but it's much smaller than you would expect. So just that's usually the first question. So that's one component. The other component is a software-defined network that we build that allows you to deploy any layer 2 network on top of AWS, Google, or any public cloud. So those are the two main components. And lately, on top of our hypervisor, we actually added another capability. We call it Nested Square. And that's a capability for a hypervisor to expose the hardware support to the hypervisors running on top of it. So now you can run OpenStack on top of Ravello on top of AWS. So it's like 3 levels of virtualization. I've seen people trying to run another layer on top of it. It works, and again, the performance is pretty good. But so now we overcome the first problem, and you can run KVM nodes on top of AWS, Google, and the other cloud. So these components together allows you to build basically an application, because an application is basically an environment that has its own fence network. You can spin it up again in AWS, let's say. You get your own fence network. You can run static IPs there, do pixie boot, VLANs, whatever, and you can burst to any number of nodes, and you can run KVM on top of it. By the way, you can run other hypervisors like ES6, VirtualBox, and others. And once you get an environment like that, you can also blueprint it. Blueprint is basically an object made out of all these components together, which you have in your library, and then you can spin multiple blueprints with your continuous integration or manually or whatever through an API call. And each instance like that is again running on a fenced network that is separated, so you can create multiple copies.
What I'm going to be showing you now is the Ravello console, and on the Ravello console we're going to see an example of a blueprint, a Ravello blueprint. Let's look at this one. So this is a Ravello blueprint. So it's a set of VMs interconnected. The nice things about this VM, it's the nested virtualization feature. I can run these VMs on other VMs running on a public cloud. And this is the network configuration. We mentioned that Ravello has its own network fabric, so you can set up your own DHCP, your own subnets, and run them as you wish. Now for Devstack on demand, I actually don't need most of this. So this is the blueprint for a Devstack Neutron on-demand instance. It runs Devstack Juno with Neutron configured. It's just one VM. Remember, I'm not doing performance testing. I'm not doing anything particularly complicated. This is for certification. This is to make sure that Cloudify works correctly with each version of OpenStack that I support, with each set of configuration parameters that OpenStack supports. So I'm going to show this in action. I'm going to be using Ravello's Python SDK to bring up a Devstack instance. So this is the script that I'll be running. It's a basic Python script. Note the use of the Ravello client SDK, and I'm just going to be using it to create an application, publish it, and I'm going to pull out its fully qualified domain name. Yeah, this starts running now. And by the way, Gal, there's something wrong with your SSL certificate. It's not verifying correctly. And here is the instance I started up. This is the new VM I started. This VM is running inside another VM on Amazon, and I can run additional VMs inside this new VM. So there's two layers of nested virtualization running here. So I already have a couple of instances running. So here is the instance of Neutron that I already started. And I have a running Devstack instance. This is a fully featured Devstack. It runs VMs inside this VM. it has Neutron. Similarly, here's another instance I ran previously. This one is in OpenStack Kilo running Novanet. Notice there's no network tab. So any number of configurations I want, any setup, any sort of Devstack I want, I'll just set up an application and run it. And I have my Devstack on-demand service. As far as timing goes, it takes about 5 minutes to bring up a VM, depending on how busy the cloud is at the time, and then a few extra minutes to have Devstack started correctly. I'm going to get back to the slides. Yeah, okay. So some of the issues that you're going to face if you want to do a Devstack on-demand service. So you have your Devstack running, and then you have VMs running inside your Devstack. How do you actually reach those instances? They don't have a public IP. You can assign floating IPs, but those floating IPs are only meaningful inside Devstack. They are not elastic IPs or floating IPs of a public cloud. So there's a couple of ways to get around this. None of them are particularly easy. Some of them are actually quite difficult. Ravello does have a method of adding elastic IPs into your OpenStack configuration. I admit I've never actually managed to get this to work, but it's there. Easiest way to do this is just have your Devstack instance include a proxy. So all of our Devstack instances run tiny proxy, but that's an HTTP proxy. So if I want to test a web server running in the nested VM, all I have to do is configure an HTTP proxy, and that all of my traffic will go through there, and I can verify that the nested VM, that's the VM running inside Devstack, works correctly. Proxies are by far the easiest way to do this. If you have an environment that's going to be running for a while, you can also set up a VPN. However, if you have multiple environments and you want to have multiple VPN configurations running from the same test environment, good luck with that. I wouldn't recommend it. I don't know if any of you have run multiple OpenVPN configurations from the same box. Things get a little messy after a while. Avoid that if you can. Each Devstack instance should run its own Devstack configuration. Don't try to have one box or one VM that has multiple Devstack versions. Devstack just wasn't built for this. If you could try to switch versions or switch some of the core Devstack configuration halfway through and try to reset Devstack, you will in all likelihood get just a very mangled Devstack configuration that you will not be able to use, and the services either won't work or worse, will seem to work but misbehave. And in addition, I would avoid multi-node Devstack configurations. You can do this with Devstack, but if all you're interested is just verifying correct behavior of your Devstack instances, single node works. We are constantly adding new Devstack configurations to the Devstack on-demand service. We'll be adding a Devstack with no security group configuration. Did you know you can set up OpenStack without security group? Just disable that feature. It's very common with telcos. Telcos love OpenStack, and they hate security groups because they provide the firewall functionality anyway. Why would I need your security groups? So OpenStack has a bunch of features that will let you run without security groups. We're adding a Devstack latest. That means that we'll have the ability to run with the latest OpenStack code. We'll be able to get our versions certified faster than we did before. We'll also be adding DevCloud, that's Cloud Stack in a box, and we'll be adding support for single node instances running vSphere 5 and 6. There will also be a bunch of future work we'll be doing to speed things up using rejoin stack and kind of optimizing the instances. It takes as much as 10 minutes to get one of these instances up. For a system test that runs once in a while, that's not a big deal, but it's still, we're still looking for ways to make that a bit faster. So a few final words. Devstack on demand. If you're going to certify your product for multiple versions of OpenStack, you need some way to test on multiple versions, multiple configurations. Devstack on demand gives you a very simple way to do that. It's fast, it's agile, it's disposable OpenStack environments. Okay, thank you very much. If you have questions, we have a booth outside, and we're hiring too.